let's attempt a goals video. Let's attempt a reflection on the previous year. I'm not really going to be doing a stats video, but I'm going to talk about some numbers because I thought they were interesting in terms of reflecting on what this reading year was to me. For context, I haven't actually rated books in Storygraph or Goodreads since August of 2023. And so the last couple of days, I actually at least caught up on 2024 and put in star ratings for everything. Because I did star ratings for my wrap-ups. But when my my pet Delilah passed away, I guess that's just what I stopped doing. Because it almost lines up perfectly. My brain went, what do ratings matter? My cat's gone. And then I stopped for a year and a half. Which is not very helpful when you're trying to figure things out with data. But I'm kind of caught up. I am tentatively going to not get behind on it anymore. We'll see. And so I actually also, while I was in Storygraph, you can add tags. So I added tags so I could keep track of things. So we're going to talk about first those little numbers. We're going to check in on some of my goals from last year and what goals I'm going to use for this year. Nothing super intense, just some intentionalities. And end with some life stuff. And yeah, hopefully it's a chill time. So let's start with what did I accomplish last year? And I read exactly 100 books. I think it was almost exactly what I would want the page count to be for that. Let me scroll up. Yeah, so it was 36,635 pages. Now, I'm positive I set my goal higher than that. I think I probably set 120 books or something like that. Although, and I think I did 40,000 pages, so I'm short on both of those fronts. But it doesn't really bother me. I don't actually care that much. I think hitting 100 books is great. The reading year felt better. And also, I always did say that, my kind of tentative, always standing page count goal is, 100 pages a day. And the pages I've read is about 100 pages a day. Because for me, that means I'm reading about 2 to 3 hours a day. Because my reading speed is pretty slow, unfortunately. So yeah, that's how many I read. And I think that's just what the goal is going to be for next year. 100 books, same pages. I think that's sustainable. We'll see. And I'm not going to be mad so long as it feels right, because it's a hobby. And I know, I think the year I read 140 some books, I felt like I read too much. I didn't feel like I was getting enough hits for the amount of time I spent reading. And so when I'm reading this much, it feels like it's in a good balance and alignment with work and other hobbies and hanging out with friends and Ryan and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's how we're going to continue. So let's look a little bit at genre, because I think that's really just interesting to me. And I do my own genre tracking for this, because Storygraph puts things in multiple genres, which is fine, but it means that you can't really see percentages of the whole. And what's nice is, since I read 100 books, whatever number I see is just the percentage. Isn't that just lovely? So my most read is fantasy, which didn't feel like it because most of my favorites were not in fantasy. So that was interesting. There were some standouts, but for the most part, most of my favorites were in horror and science fiction, but 39% of what I read was fantasy. Now, 18% of what I read total were rereads, and all of those were fantasy. So, if we remove that 18%, if we're just talking new books, only 21% of what I read was new fantasy. Because, obviously I did really love my rereads in the fantasy space. But in terms of, new fantasy I read, not that many were, really hitting. They were fine. I don't think that many ended up on my disappointments either. It was just a fairly middle-of-the-road year for me in fantasy. Science fiction, though, because I said I was going to make it the year of science fiction, 29% of what I read was considered science fiction by me. I also didn't include some things that I decided to put into the literary fiction category, because it just... For me, it can just read really different. So this is more genre science fiction, very tropey. It's going to have a lot of plot beats that you're kind of used to. I made literary fiction all-encompassing. And then for horror, I read 13%. And I'm pretty sure, let me click on it real quick, that most of these are favorites. I feel like the success rate in horror is insane. So yeah, The Good House, The Devil, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Come on, show me more. Okay, 5 out of the 13. That's kind of good. That's a really high percentage to be on my top 10. Not even honorable mentions. Those were in my top 10. And then romance was 8%. And then altogether, literary, nonfiction, and historical are about 6 plus 8. Well, is that 8? 6 plus 5 is 11%, which is good because one of my goals from last year was to still be reading non-SFF. And I left my local book club, and I think I set the tentative goal for like 6 to 8 books. And it looks like between literary, nonfiction, and historical, I read 11. And that feels really good. I blame a lot of that on some intentionalities I did, which I'm going to do in this video, where I like just have a quarterly intentional TBR of non-SFF that I can just pull from maybe if I'm in the mood, or like kind of check in and see like what are some of the things out there that I'm in the mood for. And also I read a lot for the Ursula K. Le Guin Award in Fiction, and it has a lot of literary things. And I read a handful of nonfiction. So for this quarter, I put 2 books that I think, realistically, I have a plan for one, and I could probably read the other if I wanted to, and I kind of do. So I have The Shadow of the Wind, which is like a beloved book. I think it's about a book that's the last book that's written. All of them are missing, and this person's trying to figure out why and the mystery. I believe it's translated from a Spain author. Like, I think it's a Spanish author. I don't know why I said Spain author. That was very weird. But Ryan really loved it. It like took him no time to read, and like he has a pretty good reading speed. He just doesn't spend a lot of time reading unless he's hooked, and that one hooked him. And then I have Love Medicine by Louise Erdrich. I'm planning on reading this with Mara in February, and so that should be very good. I haven't read a Louise Erdrich in over a year, which is just a crime. So that'll also be a good motivation. And both of these are in my home. They're really easy for me to get to. One of them's on my physical TBR, one's on Ryan's bookshelf. So yeah. And I already mentioned that 18% of what I read were rereads. And I don't mind that number. I'm not going to set a goal for rereads. If it happens, it happens. If I'm in the mood, I'm going to do it. I think I have one series I tentatively really do want to reread this year, and that'd be like the 9 Fox Gambit series. But I'm also like okay with just a bunch of new stuff right now. So we're just going to vibe with it. And then how I read. I think next year I'm going to add a mixed, because I have audio, eyes, and immersion. And mixed happens sometimes, but not that often, and it's hard for me to keep track of, because like, do I do mixed if I just even use the audiobook for 5 minutes? And so I just need to like figure out my personal lines, because data is only useful if it's useful for me. But something I definitely knew from this last year is like I was only reading as much as I was because audiobooks existed. Because of my commute, because of my mental health. Like I was just talking with people in the Discord today. It's like, man, this last month's the first month that for a long time, I've been able to just like sit and physically read and not like feel so noisy in my head. I'm sure that's happened to some of you guys where like sometimes just like the mental health makes things so loud and it's hard to get immersed into fiction or even nonfiction when it's like that. And I've just been able to lately, which is lovely. Because I do think, like, at the end of the day, for me, my preference is physically reading. I think that is when it works. If I am physically reading, chances are it's a favorite book because I am in. Like, I am locked in. And I'm not quite always that way with audio. That said, I have great memories reading audiobooks. So that was my feeling going into these stats, that a lot of this was going to be audiobooks, and I was right. 49% of what I read was just audio. Like, we're not even talking immersion read or mixed. Like, I read the book with audiobooks. And then in terms of eyeball reading, there was 37%. And then immersion reading, which probably includes some mixed, is 14%. So yeah, I mean, I don't have goals for this. All of this is considered reading. I think it's just a good reflection on where my headspace was. Because, like, obviously my goal is to not be so anxious or depressed or busy. But some of those things are not as controllable as I would like them to be. So yeah, those are kind of the things I kept track of. The only thing that I saw personally as like a tentative orange to red flag is I was marking books as diverse. Now, normally if I had my own spreadsheet, which I haven't even opened one for this past year or this year, I keep track of diverse authors, but I do it by author and not like, I don't duplicate it when I read multiple by an author. And like, I read a lot of books by similar authors. Like, I read 12 books by Sanderson, 10 books by Bejeweled, 7 by T. Kingfisher, 5 by Jemison, 4 by Ada Palmer, 3 by Octavia Butler, 3 by Tasha Suri, 3 by Stephen Graham Jones, 3 by Valerie Valdez, and 2 by Nevo. So, like, I read a lot of duplicate authors. So we're not even accounting for that duplication, so I don't even know how many authors total I read from this year. I just didn't look at that. But from all the 100 books, only 43% of them would I mark as being written by someone who is a diverse author. And I think a large part of that is Sanderson and Bejeweled are white people. Like, I love Bejeweled, and I love Sanderson, and I love T. Kingfisher. Those are my top 3 authors of the year. None of them are remotely diverse in any meaningful way that I keep track of. So I think that what that means is every quarter, I want to check in and see, have I been naturally reaching for diverse books enough for my taste? And if not, then making an intentionality of crafting my TBRs a bit more. Because I got out of the habit of it because I was doing it naturally. But it looks like there might be a slight slip. And even though I can see why there's that slip, like, I'm not going to be reading as much Sanderson next year. I'm still going to be reading a bunch of Bejeweled and T. Kingfisher, though, so I need to also make sure I'm balancing it by making sure I'm reading stuff by other authors. Now, you heard the rest of the list. Besides those top 3, the rest of them were all BIPOC authors, but still. It's just something that, like, it's my own little orange, red flag sort of thing. So that's books. I'm just going to keep trying to read things I like. I DNF'd a bunch last year, if you saw my disappointments video, and I want to keep working on DNFing liberally. My TBR cart isn't stressing me out. I don't have issues currently with how I'm bringing books in, so I mostly just want to read what I want to read when I want to read it. And I'm just trying to make sure I figure out what that means. So for the channel and Patreon, I think I only had Patreon goals last year. I don't think I really had channel goals, and I don't really feel like I have channel goals this year. I upload twice a week, and I would love to keep that going. I think my big channel goal, and I don't know how to measure this, which it's a problem when you don't have measurable goals. I highly recommend attainable, measurable goals when setting goals. But I feel stressed about preparing for videos. I don't feel stressed filming them. I don't feel stressed editing them or uploading them. But the making notes, like I have this little piece of paper here that I wrote a bunch of stuff on. That part feels like it takes a lot of work. And even more so, because I used to have a really like chill job where I would have a lot of downtime. So I would actually like plan out my month's videos in advance. Like I wouldn't film them in advance. I didn't bulk film that often, but I would plan and know what I wanted to film. And this past year, I sometimes don't know what I'm filming the day before the video goes up. And I'm like, that's a little too stressful for me. So this month already, I planned out approximately what videos I wanted to do this month. And I want to get like 1 month ahead and actually even look at February. And it's not like it's set in stone. I can move things around, but I sometimes even just forget ideas I have if I don't write them down. So that's a big one, because then if I know, like I knew for days that I wanted this video to be the goals video, but I didn't quite know what that meant to me. So I just could let it sit in my head, percolate, think about it. Some videos just take more prep than others. Like if I want to do a tier ranking video, I have to get all of those pictures into the tier ranker, and it's just, it's work. I can't just sit down and yammer at a camera. So I think trying to plan more, not necessarily bulk film more, would be nice. So I guess that's what's measurable. If I am actually making a plan at the start of each month for the next month, what videos I want to do, and seeing if that reduces my stress, because I think that's what's been stopping me from being as excited about filming, because I'm always just stressed about, like, do I have an idea worth filming about? So yeah, but I think the 2 videos a week is still good. And in general, I was really happy that I met my goals for Patreon last year. So each year, Patreon kind of evolves into something more fun. We gain more people. We have more of our own tight-knit community. It's a really nice chill space for me. I really enjoyed it. I actually just got done with reading sprints with them. It was very fun. So like, every year, I adjust and I learn what works for the rhythm of the group, because as at least how I manage group settings is, make sure it's sustainable for me, but works for the group itself. Which, and especially for something like this, time zones are a big thing. So what is the time zone that works best for us to do video chats and things like that? And last year, the big thing I added in were readathons. And it turned out it was like kind of perfect, because between each semester, is spring, summer, and fall semester, I want nothing more than to have a week where like I'm just reading and I don't have to worry about school or prepping for the next semester. And so I was able to do 3 little readathons this year between each of the semesters, and it was really fun. I definitely think I still want to figure out how to tweak it and what I want it to generally look like, but I was really excited that I actually did that, because it wasn't like no work, but it led to a lot of fun memories. We still do our sprints on the first Sunday of the month, which I almost forgot today. But that was something I wanted to do last year because sometimes I can be very like, sprint's happening right now. And that still happens because I don't always know when it'll happen. And also I find sometimes people are more likely to join if you don't give them too much notice. Like there's a fine line between letting people know and giving people way too much time to forget, and not put it in their schedules or anything like that. But I wanted to always just take a stand in. We meet early afternoon my time on Sundays, because that time also generally works for my UK crowd and my Pacific Coast crowd and things like that. Because if I do it during the week, it's almost always Eastern time, my time, and that doesn't work for people outside of Eastern and sometimes Pacific. So yeah, so that's been going well. I think the thing I would love to try and bring back this year, if there's interest, because again, it's not about forcing the group to do what I want, but we didn't have as many live show discussions. And part of that is I don't get a sense that there's a lot of interest all the time when we finish a book. So I want to see if I want to do something that's like, okay, here is the day and time for when we want to discuss X book. And then come that day and time, say there aren't really that many people who want to discuss it and we've already discussed all we wanted to in the Discord, we can then just turn it into reading sprints or just yammering about whatever books people have been talking about. So playing around with that. So Patreon's been really fun, really fulfilling space. Just love the community that we grow over there. So yeah, and it's been a good creative outlet because another thing I did this year is I started doing vlogs. I love the idea of vlogging. I cannot vlog for the main channel. It stresses me out. I don't know how people do it. I cannot be that messy on the main channel. I already feel like I'm not that put together, but I just cannot be that messy. And sometimes the vlogs, like, they kind of, like, they happen in a week in my life, and a week in my life can go from really good to really bad really quickly. And that happened a few times. But I really enjoyed some of the projects I got to do, just the vlogs I got to make. So it's a good just creative outlet for me as well. So yeah, that's currently where the channel and Patreon goals are. And then briefly, life goals. Last year, I was focused on my mental health. I'm like, I need to get a therapist. Guess what, guys? I got a therapist. I love her. And things have been kind of settling down. I know this time of year, people a lot of times have physical health goals. Alas, because I've had the back, butt, hamstring, pelvis pain since September, which is improved by quite a large measure. I already have a physical activity routine that I'm content with. I'm really good at doing either cardio or yoga every day, and I always have these like same exercises I have to do for strengthening. I'm stretching every day. Like, I have good habits built in, for better or worse, because if I don't do those things, I can't sit comfortably. It's really amazing what I'm willing to do if I can't be lazy because I don't do those things. Now, the big thing that I am trying to adjust is food. Not that I'm going on a diet. I have not remotely got to a point where I want to go on a diet. But I do recognize that I have a 72-ounce bag of chocolate chips in my fridge, and that's what I snack on all the time. It's who I am. And I'm not saying get rid of the bag of chocolate chips. 2025 is going to be a year. I need the bag of chocolate chips. But I'm trying to find other snack foods that I like. Not just like have healthy snack foods around. Like, I want to find snack foods that are healthy that I also like. So I'm working on that, and ideally fruit or vegetables and things like that. Although I just tried carrots and hummus, and I was like so bored after 4 carrots. I'm like, this is so boring. Like, it wasn't bad. It was boring. It was not satisfying to me. The hummus was great, but the carrot, like, ugh. So I just put the carrots all in a soup. I was just like, well, I'm not snacking on these. You're going in a soup. Because, yeah, it was boring. So I need to figure that out. Ideally, maybe having fiber, because, like, fiber and reducing inflammation, great, all about reducing inflammation. And then my other stuff is my big one, and I think I'm getting a little better at it, maybe acknowledging it helps. Fatigue. I don't get super tired. I don't think that's what happens. Is I just think if I maybe sit on the couch for too long or lay down, I just want to take a nap. And sometimes I need a nap, and that's fine. But sometimes I don't need a nap, and I just need to do something that's more active, and then I'll wake up a bit. Like, I'm too tired maybe to read, but I'm not too tired to get up and go do a task. And that leads me into the next one, where it's like, generally moved in, but around me in this room are like 3 boxes I haven't unpacked in my office. And there's 2 boxes I haven't unpacked for my closet. And my closet's a mess. So, like, there are tasks I could be doing instead of napping when I'm actually not, like, needing a nap. I'm just too tired to, like, read a book. And so I nap instead. So I think that's something I would like to try and do, see if that works. I don't know if it will. I just don't like being tired, so I like trying to do things that wake me up in the middle of the day. Because sometimes, like, I don't mind napping when it's, like, an okay napping hour, but, like, when it's 6 p.m., that's too late to nap for me. I go to bed at, like, 10 or 11. If I take a nap at 6 p.m., I'm screwed. I'm absolutely screwed. And my last one is stressing less about my free time. Funnily enough, I actually ended the year trying to test this concept out. I did a vlog for my patrons where it's just like, I am so bad at using my free time. I paralyze. I think, oh my God, I have all this time to myself. I have to watch the perfect TV show, the perfect movie, read the perfect book, use the time ideally. And what that means is I do nothing. And I just stare off into space and I'm on my phone. It's not great. And so what I ended up doing for that vlog is to try and help the paralysis. I made a little wheel that had all the things I wanted to do on it. And I only had to use it once, but basically the idea was, okay, you don't know what you want to do, spin the wheel, do that thing for 30 minutes. If you want to keep doing it, you keep doing it. If you don't want to keep doing it, you do another thing. And that kind of kept my momentum going. And so I think that's something I want to keep doing with my free time, kind of similar to the fatigue thing. It's just like, just do something else. Fight the inertia. Maybe that's what that goal is, fighting inertia, because it's so hard to fight inertia, truly. So those are the nebulous goals, a reflection on last year. I think reading-wise, it was not a bad year. Truly wasn't. Channel-wise, I don't think it was a bad year for my channel, personally. I just think it was a weird year on YouTube, and I'm sure you've heard it from, like, a lot of creators. You really, I think if you stuck with it, you stuck with it because you loved it, because you were not getting validation from views or money. Because the algorithm was doing worse, and the money was doing worse. And maybe that's why I spent so much time with Patreon, because it's like, that was a validating space. And I still love making videos for the main channel, and I'm still going to do it. I think it's a really fun hobby. But it's, I don't get paid a lot for it. Especially now, like these videos, they get just as many views as they did 2 weeks ago, and they get paid half as much. And it's not even like they were paid that much before. Like this December was the worst for AdSense in a really long time. So, and it is what it is. It's not like this is my main job or anything like that. But it does help, honestly, since I'm a part-time, adjunct. Like, it really helps me rationalize being a part-time adjunct because I know I'll get a couple $1,000s from this. Because I don't really make videos on it. If you're really interested, I could show you the money breakdown. It's just not that fascinating. But I usually get $3,000 to $4,000 a year between Patreon and AdSense. And that's my only revenues. I don't do sponsored content. I don't want to do the taxes on it. I don't even know how to do the taxes on this as is. Taxes are so fun. So fun. So it's like that really helps when I only get paid like $25,000 a year to teach 4 to 5 classes a semester. Because that's what being an adjunct is in the United States. It's the one thing that Allie Hazelwood got right in Love Theoretically. Ooh, what a time. So this got very rambly. I'm excited for the new year. I've already read a great book, so isn't that amazing to start the year with a great book? I just have energy. I'm really terrified, though, of the Sunday scaries, because it is Sunday before my first week of getting ready for work, and I am unprepared. I'm unprepared. But it's fine. By the time you're seeing this, I've already worked through it. Let me know any of your goals, intentions, aspirations for the next couple months. It can be for the whole year, but if you've been here for a while, I always just check in and adjust goals every 3 or 4 months because, I am not a stagnant person. My needs change. So that's what I do. And if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, oh, goodness, if I knew. I do not know. Maybe, just a thumbs up. I've never done that one. It just feels so lame. But yeah, thumbs up. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.